Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Sapneil Tutoring, owner and founder of Sapneil Tutoring Incorporated. Today from my desk we're going to be talking about some of the most important pearls, tips, and strategies for the SSAT Math, SSAT Verbal, and also SSAT Reading sections of the exam. So first, let's start with the SSAT Math. What are some of the 6 or 7 tips that we've put together? This isn't a comprehensive list, but this is just something that we've seen some of our students through our test prep and private tutoring programs have utilized these and try to get some extra points from utilizing these strategies. Tip number 1 is half of the math questions are arithmetic and about 1/5 are geometry based. So making sure that you are really strong in the areas that have the majority of questions is very important, whether that's heart of algebra, algebra 1, algebra 2, or pre-algebra. And then, I'm not saying not to focus more on geometry, but if you know that the majority of the questions are in algebra, make sure you know that content area very well. Tip number 2, if the problem doesn't say not drawn to scale, estimate by looking at it. Tip number 3, use numbers that are easy to work with when plugging in for variables. We call this back solving or plugging in real numbers. Back solving is when you choose as one strategy your answer choices, and you can use those answer choices to see which one fits the best question, or you use plugging in of real numbers. You estimate those real numbers, use good numbers that you know you can work with, and then try to find the answer using those real numbers based on obviously what the question is. Tip number 4, if you think a question will take more than, let's just say, a minute and 15 seconds, and you know that based on the number of questions that are on the math test, that's over the amount of time that you're gonna spend on it, circle it and try to come back to it later. Don't spend so much time on any one given question. Try to be smart about the number of points that you need to get on this specific section. So allocate your time properly and use your time and time management skills. Next one is watch out for sudden measurement changes. That means if something's asking for feet, but they give all the units in yards, know the conversion. Make sure you convert those terms properly so you're not getting confused. Sometimes you'll find that the test has traps and will give you the answer in terms of what you're trying to not convert to. So if you're getting the answer in yards but it has to be in feet, you'll have that right answer in terms of yards, and that will be a trap. So make sure you're cognizant of that. These are just some of the 5 or 6 tips for the SSAT Math section. Next, we're gonna go over the SSAT Verbal. Tip number 1 is review the tested word and find the correct definition. That means for vocab and context questions. Tip number 2, the answers may also use a secondary definition. So make sure you're familiar with maybe primary and secondary definitions of certain words. Tip number 3, examine the roots, prefixes, suffixes of that word. It definitely gives you a lot of clues in terms of context when you're reading that word in a passage. Tip number 4, does a word sound positive, negative, neutral? This establishes some tone and mood of the passage. Tip number 5, for analogies, build a sentence with the word to understand the relationship. Tip number 6, eliminate the answer choices with no relation that seem weak in their relationship. So that means eliminate wrong answer choices. Eliminate choices that you know maybe go against what they're asking, or they don't provide any sufficient evidence as to what they're asking. Next, we're gonna go over some of the tips of the SSAT reading. So this is important. Maybe spend the first couple of minutes looking for easy passages to tackle, or passages that you have better understanding of that topic, or you feel more comfortable reading. That's really important, because if you're gonna equally get all the points, depending on whether that question is, go to the questions that you know you feel most comfortable with and the passages you feel most comfortable with. Reading is the section that doesn't progress from easy to difficult, so make sure you're understanding that, whereas in the math, as you get to the end of the test, those questions are getting more difficult. Usually the very first sentence will be the main idea, or somewhat give you a clue about the main idea. It's really important to establish the main idea or the purpose of the passage. Read at a good pace, but do not reread. Actively read. Use your active voice when reading. We'll talk about on a video what active voice versus passive voice is, and we'll get to that as well. Next is try not to worry about rushing through passages. Okay, don't move on to the next passage until you answer all the questions for the current passage. If you're running short on time, look for questions that ask for a definition. Get your points from vocab and context questions. Overall, these are just 5 or 6 tips in the SSAT Math, SSAT Verbal, and SSAT Reading sections. We hope you found these helpful, and we'll add some additional videos in the coming days that will give you some more tips and strategies based on what we talked about here. Thank you so much, and we hope to help you achieve your academic goals.